I said June, I said June or July, yeah.
There's no reason why we should not be out of here early. On the theory that we don't know if these folks are coming or not yet, so thanks for coming. We have a quorum. I double checked to make sure the quorum was 5.
In the line of Cumberland Farms.
And here we are. Yes. It was dodgy there for a moment, but it came together. Dan won't be with us tonight, but it's okay because we had no business involving TA tonight, which is fine. I'm going to take things just slightly out of order to that point. Actually, we don't have to because we have minutes from the last 2 meetings.
I just think that works all the time, so
And-
don't feel bad.
I don't feel bad. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the meeting minutes. There's 2 meetings here, obviously, April 22nd, May 29th. If you want to peruse them real fast, I'm more than willing to wait.
Goes back.
And then I'm going to entertain a motion
Yeah.
to accept both of them, if that's acceptable, unless somebody sees a glaring error either.
We're just going to amend the spelling of my last name on the April, the last meeting, May 29th meeting.
Which place?
At least 2.
Yeah, the reader doesn't
It looks like
it.
it's consistently throughout.
Yeah.
Ah, he went from new to no.
Yes.
Yeah.
That he, my grandfather, failed to drop, the computer took care of.
I'll move that we accept the minutes
Have a second?
As
What
amended.
edited?
As amended.
Yeah,
as amended.
Yes,
Yes.
I will second.
and we'll hold the computer accountable. All those in favor of accepting the minutes? Okay, 5-0.
Alright.
So, on to transfers. I met with Dan this morning just to get the story on when and how we would have an opportunity to see the transfers ahead of having to vote on them. Basically, as you may know, it is the responsibility of the FinCom primarily to approve or likely approve the transfers, year-end transfers that come through. They come through somewhere between July 1st and July 15th. This is year-end stuff. They will be available as of July 3rd, and Dan assured me he would then send them to me so that I could then email them to you, and I checked open meeting law to make sure that that was okay. And as long as I don't take a position on it,
Right.
so you will have the opportunity to see them somewhere on or around, well, not July 4th, because you'll be partying, but somewhere around there, I'll forward the transfers to everyone. What we need to do then is have the briefest, I'm hoping, of meetings before July 15th in order to vote on them. So
Well, the
the
10th.
select board is meeting on the 9th, which is a Tuesday.
The 10th is good.
Rebecca has 2 meetings on the 10th, so that Wednesday is a problem. How about the 9th? Is Tuesday the 9th? Is that a problem for anybody?
No.
Well, Dan won't be here because he'll be at the select board meeting.
Do
Right.
we need, to purchase transfers, do we need him here to, or do we,
Not if
do we
we have-
anticipate
I mean,
questions on them?
He'll probably
I
have
know,
full
I-
explanations with them.
Explanations of
I won't be, but that's just.
Are you gonna be away for a while, or is it just that night?
Yeah, just a night.
Well, how about Thursday then, the 11th?
Well, the other possibility is we could have it on the 10th, but earlier.
I have a meeting at 5:30.
Oh, never mind, sorry.
How about the 11th? Thursday. It'll be quick, I promise. I mean, it's gotta
At the bomb shelter?
be. Sure.
I don't think so.
Just kidding.
7 o'clock on the 11th, that's a Thursday, does that work?
Yeah, I'll be, yeah,
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll say 7 o'clock on the 11th. And it'll be, you will not be on the 11th. Yeah, 7/11, that could be a lucky day.
There you go. I like it.
All right.
Seven-
then we
that's-
won't have a
at
meeting.
7 o'clock?
Yep. Then we won't have a meeting later in July, we won't, unless something comes up, and we won't have one in August, right?
Right now, my thinking was that this is the getaway meeting for the summer, and that we weren't going to reconvene until September. That's been tradition, I hate to call it tradition, but I think that's kind of what it's been the last few years.
Especially
And-
this year with all those extra
And with the
meetings.
transfers done, I don't think we have any major business to deal with until the fall. So unless somebody really, really wants to meet this summer at the beach or whatever, you know, I think it's that meeting and then see in September. Is that okay with
They
everybody?
can record us to the
So-
meeting, right?
We can do that under other business in terms of scheduling the meetings, but they're gonna fall on along the same pattern, so. Okay, transfer's done. We have no correspondence that I'm aware of. Liaison assignments. I think I know, well, I know what your liaison assignment is, it's DPW, is that
Yes.
correct? Jeff, are you energy or?
I'm actually police, but,
I'd like to meet the chief,
but he
because
comes,
he wasn't aware of that fact.
Chief comes all the time, so I've not really done my duty, yeah.
All right.
All right, good
We
to
should
know.
meet.
Welcome aboard, thank you.
I'm building needs and I frequently have correspondence with Harry as frequently as they have meetings. Which is not often, but I am kept informed.
I'm fire, and I don't know what else, but something else, I don't remember what.
And I'm school.
Linda
Stevens,
is-
rec.
Yeah.
And what is the library? I don't know.
Stephen
Stephen is rec
has,
and,
no, it
What
was,
is
is it
that?
the whole human service thing?
oh,
Was he-
yeah,
I think he
Who
was
is
the
the
whole,
liaison to?
I'm building needs.
Does that incorporate housing and all that? Or-
no,
No,
it's,
it's
it's dealing with existing town buildings
Town
and,
buildings.
and their, and their future considered town buildings.
So I guess, you know, my point of confusion is, are there departments that we don't have covered that ought to be covered?
What's the library?
The library is Woody.
Okay.
So we're good there.
Um,
Shellfish, I assume, is Bob, but I don't know that for a fact.
it is Bob, and I believe he's Marina as well.
So, when it comes down to the, I don't know that the
I'm probably
energy.
liaison to water commissioners,
Was that?
I'm probably the liaison to water,
That was one of them.
yeah,
And
that's me.
energy, at one point I was the liaison to energy, I got pulled off that for school.
Also doing energy.
We stopped doing it, I offered to do it, but they didn't seem like there was I'll be happy to if we want, I'm not, I guess I mean, I still sort of follow what's happening, I guess their issue is.
If you're okay with that, I think there are gonna be some things coming up this year that may require some kind of interaction with the energy committee, whether it's through a liaison or through
Yeah, there's some
presentations.
issues at the transfer station.
That's right, yeah, I talked to Dick Delkin the other day, and there's still approval issues and getting it going kind of stuff.
I'll tell you what,
I'm to do that too.
I'll tell you what there isn't that perhaps there ought to be, and that is affordable housing.
Well, that's why I asked about housing.
But that, I would personally be happy to drop water and take on affordable housing, because that interests me a lot more,
Okay,
if we're gonna create that position.
they're both important.
They are.
I do their website. Well, for affordable housing.
I'll tell you what, since we're short a few people today,
When they watch the tape later.
I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm gonna say, why don't we hold off on water for the time being? And in September, we'll have a more full discussion about who should be that liaison. Nothing's gonna happen that I'm aware of over the summer. So we'll leave that one hanging, if that's okay with everyone.
I think that's reasonable.
All right, so liaisons.
Because it's, the budget cycle hasn't really gotten going yet.
Strategic planning. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that I was going to finish last year's report, and I will, I promise. The thing that I wanted to talk about briefly was, as you're probably aware, the comprehensive planning process is starting to kick up again in theory, though I don't know that it actually has a champion yet. with Joe Power gone, it was, of course, Brian Carlson, but then he left, and so I'm not sure, maybe you know Rebecca, but I'm not sure that there's anybody actually heading it up at this point. But there is some sense that it needs to be headed up and started up again, which is
Which is,
the 5 to 10 year view of where Wellfleet's going and whatever.
oh no, never mind, that was something else. This is separate.
I also talked to Dan today, if you read the state guides on FinComs, it is our responsibility to not only sort of host the process for the capital improvement plan in October, but also run a public meeting about it. So that's kind of the 5-year view of capital planning, right? And you can,
Neglected to do that last year.
what's that?
I think I neglected to do that last year.
Well, we probably will end up doing it this year, and that'll be after October 1st, because that's when Dan has to get the 5-year plan to us. And this is a statutory thing, this is actually a clear FinCom responsibility, so there we are. But it's pretty easy to see
It might-
where all of these processes might start to come together. If there's a 5-year, 10-year view of Wellfleet being developed, and we have this thing we do with strategic planning, and the capital improvement plan is a view out on capital needs and so on. What I was thinking was that we might, through our liaison assignments, which is why it came on the agenda first, start to be proactive in our conversations with department heads about what their longer term plans are. Not just capital, but also headcount and whatever. It doesn't have to be super formal, and maybe we can come up with a little script for what the kinds of questions we want to ask, but they would net out to something like, any big surprises coming in the next 3, 4, 5 years? Do you need to hire a whole bunch of people? Do you see significant changes to your department and so on? So not only can we plug that into our process, but we could also start to be more useful to the other processes. Because I think we're going to be called on at some point to have a perspective on the financial implications of these other things. Dredging is the one that I keep coming back to as being, yeah, we voted on $7.5 million, but who even knows if that's a real number, and it could be more, and it could be later, and the federal government hasn't passed their budget yet. There's so many suppositions about how much and when that fold right back on our strategic planning document, but also are going to be real questions for the town going forward. So we don't have to make any decisions right now about how we're going to do that. And I'd love to hear if anybody has any ideas about whether, A, this seems like a good idea to do it through the liaison relationships, or if you...
I think it does, and I know actually Mark has a 5-year plan. I don't think it's a 10, but, because he has some projects that are so expensive, like that Lieutenant's Island Bridge, that he has to try to save that Chapter 90 funds to try to build it up so he can afford to pay for that down the road.
Yeah, these are like the sort of things that
So
are
he
worth...
has, I think I even have, a whole schedule on those kind of projects that have to be done, and they're coming down the road.
Oh, good. Yeah, so, yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Well, I'm just gonna add, some of the questions that you just spouted, were really good.
Is that spouting?
No, these wonderful facts, these questions
That's what you're looking for.
I mean, one of the things that I think I've really, how long can I get away with, I'm still new.
Now,
You're done.
But,
you're here and...
I know, but I'm saying that one of the things that's really, I think, other than the police chief has always kept the committee informed, so I haven't felt too obligated to worry about my liaison role. But there's really no structure, there's no way of saying, here's kind of profiles, the kinds of things that we want to be asking. I mean, part of it is I don't really know what it is I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be asking, that's what I'm saying. So the kinds of questions that you just said, I think if we assembled that together as kind of like, this is what we should be addressing, that would be really helpful to me.
Yeah, and it'll be easy to do, because they're not like super deep or complicated kinds of questions. They may vary a little bit by department.
But I think it would
So
also-
what you ask the DPW might be,
And I also think it
Different
fits
than
in
what you
with
have
what
for
you're
fire
just saying, because there may be some that are like, here's our general, and then this is one's on a 5 year, so just some ways to kind of like define a little bit, from a profile, being a member of this committee, what it is that we're kind of like, what are the questions that we're asking and trying to collect the information about. Be
Sure.
helpful.
yeah, when I was talking to Dan today, we were talking about process stuff, and it was mostly around the whole capital improvement planning role that we have in October, since I wasn't familiar with it. I said, so they're gonna give us the capital improvement projects or whatever, the list of things that need to get done. What do we do with them at that point, you know? It's like, if you have to put them out essentially to the public and say, give us a reaction. If you get a reaction that's a challenge, where does that go? So what is the process by which you actually settle on a final plan? And he said, well, you know, it's not clear. Process varies and whatever. And in the work that I used to do, what I discovered about process over the years is that there's little processes. So I mean, you can say within a department they have their processes. Then you take a half step back and you look at department to department processes. You know, how do they integrate? Eventually you get back to where you're looking at the whole town and saying, how does everything sort of fit together? You know, what's the role of the fire department in Wellfleet? You know, and so on going forward. And one of the
It's easy,
things,
it's a pancake breakfast. That's it.
yeah, that one of the concerns I have in general as a FinCom is that what we hear, and we will this again this fall, is we hear individual budgets coming through. But we don't often have the opportunity to kind of put them together and say, priorities over here may conflict with priorities over there. Are they even aware of the fact that their priorities are conflicting with each other? And we have the opportunity, I think, to be a communications channel along those lines, at least on the financial level. You know, other boards, whatever, may have other roles, but we can certainly see financial conflicts that, I mean, we saw it this year at town meeting. Look how many big capital and other articles showed up, some of them at the last minute. Town was in a magnificently munificent mood this year about saying yes, but that's not gonna happen every year. Some years you're gonna have to say not this year, like for the sweeper, right? That got pushed off 2-3
We're
years.
the economy of it.
Well,
So anyway,
when it got pushed off the first time, or they voted it down, we had to invest a good amount of money into that machine. So since we didn't put it back
That's what was.
until this
Yeah.
past
yeah,
town meeting.
and to some degree, the law of unintended consequences comes into play. You think, well, you're saving money this year, but then you're spending $50,000 on maintenance that you have to find somewhere in free cash or somewhere. So,
I think it partly falls on us as the FinCom to make it very clear to the voters, as we did this year, that putting off these capital purchases, there are some that can be moved, but things like vehicle replacement and equipment replacement they're on a schedule for a reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, once you get off the schedule, if it gets pushed off, once you get off the schedule, then it's a domino effect, because now you're gonna have that capital budget being pushed out.
And then you get a year like
And then you
this.
have, yeah, and then you have other things that become obsolete in the meantime, so now you're just, you know.
And maybe the reason people were generous is because of, for other reasons, tax bills actually went down as opposed to going up.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
So people felt
better.
better.
Better about it.
Yeah.
But, the fact is that we would like to avoid having another year with that
You
mix.
can't-
It's tight.
You're not, yeah, you better not count on that, right? The-
Yeah,
It's like-
so the idea is to get things back on their schedules and, do our best to, to keep things from getting voted down when they need to be done.
Yeah, and the thing is, as a FinCom, and I'm always sensitive to what Woody said 2 years ago, we're not a policy-setting board, we are an advisory board.
Right.
However, having said that, if you read the state guidelines on the FinCom, there are towns that use the FinCom as the owner of the budget. It's a clearly stated role for the FinCom. It just happens that in Wellfleet, given our charter, we have a more shared relationship with the Board of Selectmen. So the budget gets proposed, we are an advisory, reactive, if you like, board, but it doesn't have to be that way. Some towns do it differently. So there's this line to walk between being assertive about what needs to be done and being, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but at least being a good advisor to what needs to be done. And hopefully we'll continue to walk that line the right way. But if you guys are okay with it, I'd just like to expand the strategic planning just that much to make it part of our process, to ask our department heads to contribute their longer term perspective into our view, so at least we, you know, we can see things in context. Okay?
Works for me.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm all for becoming more assertive.
if you guys are good with it, and to your point about putting together some sort of thing, we're not gonna meet until September, but I may call you individually over the summer just to kind of talk through your departmental issues and just get a sense of what kinds of questions you would want to ask them. So then when we come back in September, we'll have the basis for some sort of guidelines about how to go forward.
The only downside I can think to what you're saying is that we may be very clear that we are an advisory and not a policy, but when you start to express some things, it may be that others project on us that we're trying to do that. That's the only downside.
Well, and I totally agree with that, and I think that's one of the reasons.
You can't help
And
that.
I think
Yeah.
I'll make a nod to Janet's leadership on this from this past year. I think that's one of the reasons and one of the benefits of our not having taken a position on the Hilton acquisition. Because at the end of the day, we didn't feel we were informed enough to know which way to go. And had we said no, we would have had an outsized influence on the outcome.
And we had a millionaires in the room. I'm sorry.
Without knowing whether we were even right, because we didn't, you know, so I take your point.
No, I think that was, yeah, no, I think, yeah, I agree with that, I agree that was, yeah.
There are times when you can say,
Let's say, you
I don't know.
know, somebody's gonna vote on it and we have no,
yeah, or you could use more study or whatever, but we're not ready to make a decision.
Yeah.
That's all right,
Right, as a committee,
as a
no,
committee,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Finally, under other business, for my only other business is to set up the first few meetings in the fall, the schedule for them, so that we know when we're coming back. And then I'm open to hearing anybody else's other business have any, including motions to adjourn.
Our
So,
schedule is
the fourth
fourth
Wednesday.
Wednesday of every month.
So that would be the 25th of September. That would be the 23rd of October. The 27th of November, which is right after Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, is that the Wednesday before
Yeah, that's a
Thanksgiving?
great question. Is
It is.
Thanksgiving?
That is always. a
Yep,
question.
Thanksgiving is the 28th.
Yeah, it is.
You could do the 20th.
I'd be more than happy to consider doing the third Wednesday and the 20th if that's,
That would work for me, I cook.
let's do that. We're coming to your house, are you kidding? We heard you cook, we're gonna be there, it's gonna be great.
So we're gonna make it on the 20th?
And oh, by the way, the fourth Wednesday in December is Christmas Day,
Right,
so
and we don't usually meet that week either, we
So-
either meet,
the 18th?
yeah, probably.
All right, so the third Wednesdays in November and December, and I don't think we need to plan out beyond that personally, at this point.
Right, and there may be some need to alter those anyway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put them on your
Yep.
website, just so people have, because I get a lot of phone calls of when are the meetings. So I'll put it on at the bottom, just say tentative to change.
Do we
Yeah,
need
you
to
might,
make
you might
the
just,
July
on those
11th
November,
public
December ones, you
meeting,
might just
or-
asterisk them, you know, these meetings.
Do we have to make, does the July 11th have to be publicized if
Yes.
it's
I
enough?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think anytime we meet, it has to be
Yeah.
publicized. It's
Okay.
one of the open meeting law things
Okay.
that you can't just have a meeting.
We
You
did
know,
It has
ask
to be
on,
posted 3 business days
Okay.
prior.
We couldn't, for example, jokes aside, go to the beach and have our meeting without telling people that.
No, oh, I understand that, but I didn't realize, because we were meeting with a specific purpose for just doing transfers.
It's not gonna be a public
Yeah,
meeting.
no, we're,
There was one
I was
time
just
that we
asking.
held it outside here, nobody
Yes.
had a key,
Yep.
and that's all we were
But it was
doing.
still at the COA.
Yeah.
And
It was a quick
and it was
meeting, quick
posted.
meeting, and it was
Tom
open to
Reinhardt
the
came on
public
his
in
bike.
the greatest
Tom
possible
Reinhardt came on
sense.
his bike.
Yeah, I remember that meeting. It was short.
Does anyone have any other business that they would like to discuss? Bring up? Entertain, introduce? I'm going with no here, is what I'm
I'd
feeling.
like to.
Does anybody want a
propose
cookie?
motion to.
I think a cookie.
Well, cookies are right over there, take one on your way out.
You know, should I, yeah, you know,
As
just,
you
probably
get-
have to open them and put them on a plate with a doily on them.
I know,
Yeah,
next time,
and then
next
they
time.
show up on-
I'm common cook, I'm
You know
common
how
cookies.
impromptu this was because you were there.
Yeah.
You were a good.
Well, I put forth a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All those who are in favor of adjournment? Jeff,
Opposed?
serious.
I want a cookie.
Thank you, guys.